Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm an American lay student of Ajahn Suchart, or Ajahn Suchart Abhijato, who's given me his permission to read his books to you for free. Ajahn Suchart's books and talks are always free. Any ads you may see or hear in this recording have been put there by the platform you are using to listen or view with for its own revenue, in exchange for letting us use their platform for free. Please forgive me for any mispronunciation of names or words or places, and for any background noises, as I'm just making these recordings in my apartment with an unruly dog and in the middle of a city. We are reading Beyond Birth, Ajahn Suchart Abhijato, an autobiography that came out December 2021. And we are continuing chapter 5 on page 203. And this subsection is titled Medicine. When we eat too much, sensuality usually follows. If we take pleasure in eating and sleeping well, it encourages sexual desires. Eating less reduces thoughts about sexual pleasure. Thus, fasting, or reducing our food intake, helps us by decreasing sensual cravings, reducing laziness, and forcing us to meditate. For me, when I was going through suffering, I would meditate to gain peace of mind so that I would not be distracted by thoughts of food. During fasting and serious meditation periods, sexual desires did not really arise because the mind was more focused on food. When I was not fasting, sometimes such thoughts would occur, but I always used contemplation as medicine to control them. So sensuality and sexual desires never caused much of a problem for me. When monks have this problem, it usually is because they do not use contemplation, which is one of the first lessons from the first day of ordination. Monks are taught by the preceptor to contemplate 5 kammatthana, which come from the 32 parts of the body. However, since reciting all of them may be too much, we focus on just 5: head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, and skin. When we focus on the 32 body parts continuously, we see the repulsiveness in the body. Seeing someone with a beautiful body, we should look more deeply inside, at the skull, bones, liver, kidney, intestines, feces, and urine. Doing this becomes a medicine which can be used as needed. When we think sexually, we're thinking about beauty. We need to think about the 32 body parts. When you think about them, sexuality will stop, because you can control it all the time. The question is, do you control it all the time or not? It depends. Do you have the medicine ready when you need it? This is medicine that you don't need to take all the time. Maybe only take it when you have the disease. If your mind is peaceful, calm, and neutral, and not causing trouble, then there's no need to do anything about it. But when your thinking is defiled, then you have to use some medicine to cure it. And the next section begins on page 205 and is titled The Exam Room of a Meditation Monk. Meditating monks or forest monks are generally not worried about pharmaceutical medicine. Ever since I was ordained, I have never had even one painkiller in my kuti because I have always had the Dhamma inside as medicine. When hurt, allow it to hurt. It hurts only the body, not the mind. Don't feel sorry for the body. Just contemplate death constantly, and you will know that caring for it is a waste of time. It's pointless because it'll still have to die anyway. So it's better to take care of the mind. It's better to give importance to the mind. If we want to test the strength of our mind, when we get sick, we should not take any medicine. For example, in the forest, if we run a fever, we should use Dhamma as our medicine. This means using equanimity, upekkha, to fight it until the body gets rid of the sickness. If the body cannot do it, then it dies. Death is the test, the exam that we have to pass. We have to let go of the body just as we have to let go of pain. However, if we are not ready for the test, then we can go to the doctor to get some medicine. It certainly is not forbidden. But if we are ready to examine the strength of our mind, to see if we have enough equanimity to accept aging, suffering, and death, we have to find a lab to do the test. For example, if you're sick in the forest, using equanimity as your only medicine until the body either recovers or dies. This is called entering the laboratory of practice, because you will still die, even if you were staying in a hospital. When the time comes, you have to die. There are two choices: wait until the time comes, or find a lab to test yourself with first. If we wait until death is imminent, our mind will be likely to be unable to let go of the body without great suffering. The second choice is to put ourselves in the testing room, and if we fail, we can go back and work on it until we pass the test. If we wait for death without preparing, the mind will probably not pass the test, and then we'll have no second chance. But if we prepare for the test when we have the chance, we can strengthen our mind to pass the final exam. There is a quote next on page 207. Suppose we have a wound and we put medicine on it. We have to keep that medicine with us the whole time we are injured. But if we never use medicine and let the wound heal itself, it will heal even though it may take longer. It is much more convenient because we do not have to worry about it. For me, I never used any salve or ointment on a wound. I just let it be. I take no medicines for headache or a fever either, because a fever does not usually give us a headache, but perhaps only a body ache. If I have a cold, I do not take any medicine for it. I tolerate it, and it usually goes away by itself. If the mind has been developed to deal with suffering, bodily aches are not anything special. For example, when the whole body is in great pain from extended sitting meditation, if the mind can stay peaceful, eventually it will learn not to be disturbed by illness and pain. The next section begins on page 208 and is titled The Laboratory. Besides fasting, another approach that I learned at Wat Yannasangwararam was to be in a scary place with poisonous creatures or other things that challenged my mindfulness and wisdom, invoking the fear of death. I had to find a way to fight that fear. One evening, after listening to the Dhamma talk from Luangta in the sala, I went back to practice meditation. At that time, I was fighting fear of death by walking on the dark path in the forest without using a flashlight in order to arouse fear. I allowed the fear to rise and reach its limit. At that point in time, thoughts arose like, "Am I going to step on a snake?" I would try to let it be. In my mind, I would think, "So I step on it. If I die, I die." Once I surrendered to the thought of dying, the mind resigned to the fact and let go of the fear. Once my mind became peaceful, I realized that the suffering came from fear because I was attached to not wanting the body to die. But when contemplating with wisdom, things that die aren't really myself. They are just the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire coming together to form this body. This body will die sooner or later, but the mind would not die. Not even if a nuclear bomb hits it. The mind has no form or components, just like the emptiness in front of us. Even a bomb will not be able to destroy it. Try it, and you will see that the emptiness remains. Our mind is like that emptiness. It will not disappear or die. So what do we have to be afraid of? We fear death only because we are deluded that we are the body, which one day must die. Once I realized that, my mind accepted the fact and fear dissipated. I did not use this test too many times, as it was no longer needed. Once the fear was gone, I understood how it worked. It was surprising to me to discover that if we contemplate anything with reason, the mind will accept it and calm down. Just like the first time that I meditated, using the mantra helped me through those challenges and revealed that the problem was desire. Fear is also a desire. Wanting to live invokes the fear of dying. Another example is painful feeling. Once I experienced pain and got past it, I was not interested in doing sitting meditation overnight anymore. Knowing how to deal with pain was enough. Luangta sat through the night, but he didn't force everyone. He just wanted us to learn that suffering arose from our desires, and that we could use wisdom to stop it. We were no longer afraid of pain because we knew how to control the mind. Just this is good enough. The important things are mindfulness and wisdom. It has to be discerning mindfulness with a basis in mental calm before wisdom can work well. Because whenever kilesas occur, the mind will heat up as if a volcano is about to blow. The mind will become so disturbed and restless, not calm. If we are not in samadhi, because the normal mind is not peaceful, we will not notice the difference. But when the mind is calm, it is like still water. If we throw a pebble into it, it will make a ripple. Or if there is a fish in the water, it can come up to the surface and cause a ripple. Kilesas are like fish in the water, causing the still and peaceful mind to become restless as soon as thoughts occur. Thus, whenever the mind is in a peaceful state, a small thought will make it ripple, and it will recognize that as a kilesa. However, if the mind thinks according to the Dhamma, which is to think about the three characteristics of existence, tilikana, impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta, then the mind will not ripple. Before we can reach this truth, the mind has to be in a state of equanimity, having entered full concentration, or appana samadhi, to clearly see the noble truths. The cessation of suffering occurs when the mind is still, but when problematic thoughts cause a ripple, we can pull in the tilikana to help bring back the peacefulness, because the mind would see the working of the Four Noble Truths. There's a quote next on page 210. When Dhamma began rolling, I was enjoying the meditation, though there was still some suffering, because I had to fight with kilesas. But they were valuable, because every time that a kilesa is killed, I would be lighthearted, happy, and proud to be able to walk past it. The reward was worth the effort, because the tiredness would disappear, and only happiness remained. The next section begins on page 211 and is titled, Knowing How the Noble Truths Work. Letting go of pain can be accomplished in two ways. The first one is to let go of pain through the power of samadhi. In this way, you have not attained the first stage of enlightenment or sotapanna yet. For example, when the body feels pain, repeating the mantra, utto, can calm the mind. But it is not the sotapanna stage. The other way is that of the stream enterer. A sotapanna lets go of pain with wisdom, seeing it as anatta, that cannot be prevented from occurring, and just lets it be. If there is a desire for the pain to cease, then the mind will suffer. To see the second noble truth means to know that mental suffering stems from the desire to make the pain go away. In order to extinguish mental suffering, we have to consider the painful feelings are anicca, impermanent, dukkha, suffering, and anatta, non-self. We cannot prevent them from happening. So instead of resisting, just let it be. Once we can let painful feelings be, then the mental pain will cease. We can live with the bodily pain easily because it is many times less than the mental pain. It is like when someone scolds us, we cannot prevent it. But as soon as we let go of the desire for them not to have done it, we can listen to it without pain, laughing at the thought of how tiring it must be for them to do that. We have to recognize that suffering is in our mind. We have to know the Four Noble Truths to attain the level of sotapanna. It is not possible to claim that we become a sotapanna when the suffering just disappears for one day without our knowing how. To reach the 4 stages of enlightenment, practitioners have to know each and every step of the Four Noble Truths in their level of meditation practice. Then they will become the one who sees the Dhamma. Seeing the Dhamma is comprehending the Four Noble Truths and knowing how to deal with them. Dukkha, or suffering, is to be fully comprehended. We have to know when suffering occurs. Knowing that suffering is in the mind, we contemplate the fact that it comes from desires, to control what we cannot. Once we see this through the Noble Eightfold Path and wisdom, we can let go of the cause of suffering, samudaya, which is the desires and craving. Then, cessation of suffering, nirodha, will happen. In every level of enlightenment, suffering will cease by way of wisdom, that is, knowing anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Being a sotapanna means to see the harm of desires. The next section begins on page 213 and is titled Proper Behavior Toward Teachers. I was lucky that I did not have much to do with anyone at the monastery from the very beginning, so I could spend most of my time meditating. I was not involved in the activities of the monastery, just doing what was required. I did not volunteer for too many communal tasks, such as putting up a building either. I actually volunteered once when a kuti was being built, but the Longta mentioned that it was voluntary and told me to go back to my kuti, because he must have seen that I could not really do this type of task. I was used to studying and holding a pen, so when I had to use a hoe or spade or carry timber, I probably looked like I could not do it well. Longta was kind enough to tell me not to do it, so the others knew that he did not want me to participate in that type of activity. However, Longta did not let me be that idle, and found lighter tasks for me to do, so that other monks did not feel like they were being taken advantage of. He usually divided up the tasks appropriate to each of us. For me, he gave me a job to mail Dhamma books whenever someone sent a letter asking for them. He would walk over to my kuti after reading the letters and say, "Consider what to do with this." Or sometimes he would write on the letter that I should send certain books by mail. I would pack them up and send them. Since this was the task that Luangta assigned to me, the other monks would not take it over. I used to think that I would escape that job when I went away because someone else would be doing it instead of me, but when I got back, they would give it back to me. And there is a quote next on page 214 in the middle of that text. Luangta did not let the monks help out too much. He wanted us to practice meditation, because that is the goal of ordination. Once the truth has been realized, the task is complete, and then we can make ourselves useful. And the text continues on page 215. I really did not want to do anything at all during those days, just walking and sitting meditation, so that my mind would be at peace, and not having to worry about looking for the books, replenishing the wrapping paper or string, etc. But living at the monastery meant that we had to help our teacher. Luangta must have thought that if he did not give me any responsibility at all, then I would be a target for the other monks or novices. They might complain about me, since there were many tasks that they had to do, such as taking turns boiling the water, manning the sala, etc. However, I was saved from such criticism, since the others had seen that Luangta dismissed me from those tasks, so they figured he did not want me to do them. Normally, a monk had to take turns staying at the sala for a week to greet visiting lay people and find out what they needed. They would be sent away if they came at the wrong time, or if the timing was proper, be allowed to see Luangta if he permitted it. Other monks would oversee the hall where monks came to take panna break, accepting panna drinks from lay people, boiling the water, distributing the drinks, washing the cups, and putting them away. Some monks had the duty to look after Luangta's belongings, such as taking care of his alms bowl and robes. Performing these tasks was a training in self-sacrifice, caring for others and our teacher. This is called Acharya Vata, the proper behavior towards teachers. Serving our teachers by performing various tasks was a way to develop mindfulness, because the teachers were usually strict with every task. We had to perform them with thoughtfulness and do them well every time. When we were not doing them well, it meant that we were not thinking about the task at hand and were letting the mind wander about other matters. It showed our teachers that we lacked mindfulness. They then needed to scold us and sometimes even tell us not to perform that task any longer. If we wanted to perform the task, then we had to be very careful, and that helped in the development of mindfulness. Those who had the opportunity to serve the teacher had the chance to greatly develop their mindfulness. When we were in front of our teachers, our mind had to remain in the present. We had to be attentive with every movement. This by itself is mindfulness. Our wisdom would also arise because our teachers would help recommend the proper way to do things. This is why disciples want to serve their teachers, because living alone does not lead to situations that help one to develop mindfulness or to acquire wisdom. And we're going to stop there today. That's page 216 and resume in the next recording on page 217. We are in chapter 5 of Beyond Birth, Ajahn Suchart Abhijato, and Autobiography. And the title of the next section is Not Socializing. I'll see you next time with Metta. Bye-bye.